Right now, Carmi Levy is on the phone, our CTV tech analyst. Carmi, lots to talk about today, but I want to start with what's going on. I saw this story the other day and thought, wow, in Quebec, we spent a lot of time talking about what kids are going to have to deal with going back to school this year. In Quebec, you're giving up your phone. There'll be no phones from the time you walk in until, the final bell rings. But in Nova Scotia, they're doing something we discussed previously, but the government here has not yet decided to do, which is, we found out yesterday, Nova Scotia, at least the Liberal government there, has introduced a bill that could make it the first Canadian province to ban social media entirely for kids under 16. So fill in some blanks here. What does this mean?
Yeah, this is one step beyond just banning smartphones in class. This is 24/7, 365, even when you're not in school. If you're under the age of 16 in that province, you are not using this technology. Now, of course, the Liberal Party, not in power right now. They've only got 2 seats, so their Social Media Responsibility Act may not survive unless, of course, the ruling Conservatives decide that it's a thing that they want to support it. But the thing is, it gets us talking about it. It gets us talking about the social media impact, or the impact of social media on kids' mental health, which we know is significant. We know there's that huge $4.5 billion lawsuit that a bunch of school boards in Ontario have launched against big social, big tech companies. And we know that pretty much every province has legislated smartphone bans in schools. So this raises it to the next level. We know that Quebec, the CAQ committee earlier this year, also recommended that we move in that direction. Of course, haven't seen any legislation yet in Quebec, but it's interesting to see the provinces start to really tighten the noose on these technology companies, saying, look, social media, not good for our kids. Something's got to give, and we're going to start with proposing a ban. And I think this is a healthy discussion that, quite frankly, as a parent, very long overdue.
So it is long overdue, and it's been talked about a lot, as I said off the top. Have you seen anywhere? I know in Australia, right? It's already in effect.
Yeah, so Australia, the law is now law. They are actually going to sort of pull the trigger on it and actually start enforcing it later this year, this winter. Norway is another country that has also enacted it, and what they're finding is that it's one thing to say you're going to ban; it's quite another to actually enforce it. So you've got to have like technology in place to identify, yep, you're in the province, or you're in Australia or Norway, yep, you're in the country, and you're of this age. It has to verify. You have to sign in and verify how old you are. In most cases, you have to use some form of government ID. Now, the government is collecting all this information, private information, to make sure that you are who you say you are, and you are that right age. There's a problem of false positives. A lot of adults are finding when they sign in, they're being falsely accused of being kids, and they're not able to access social media. So a few flies in the ointment here. And so it's not a perfect thing, and certainly not going to solve the problem of kids and social media and mental health. But as kind of an additional tool in the toolkit, so to speak, it's probably a reasonable place to start. And even if you don't go full on to a ban, at least the very act of talking about it recognizes we got to start prioritizing this because it's bad and getting worse.
So let me kind of take a story somewhat related, I guess. Canada's privacy commissioner is telling Google it must allow us as parents, I guess, to ask to have our personal data deleted. Now, is that something they can actually do? Because it seems to me every push against Google has been pushed back.
Sure, technologically it's possible, right? If I go searching, say, for my name, and I see something that comes back, one of the links is maybe it has something I don't want people to see, I should have what's called the right of erasure, or the right to privacy, right to be forgotten, that I can ask Google to remove that from their index, so when people search for it, they won't find this embarrassing thing. Very important when you're looking for a job, very important if you don't want to have your reputation ruined. And this stems from a case in 2017. A gentleman was charged, but ultimately those charges were dropped. But of course, the coverage stayed in Google's index, and for years he said he would have trouble getting a job. He was subject to stigma. He was even physically attacked because someone thought he was a criminal. And so the right to be forgotten exists in Europe. It's enshrined in their legislation, and it's working there. We don't have those laws here in Canada, but Our privacy commissioner says Google needs to do that, and the Federal Court of Appeal and the Federal Court of Canada have both ruled, Google, you have to listen to the privacy commissioner. Unfortunately, Google is still saying, we're going to review it, we don't agree with it, and we're going to fight it. So Google really not behaving all that well. And so it means that if you've got something out there that is kind of questionable, it's going to be really hard for at least the next little while to get it removed from Google.
Meanwhile, if you're on YouTube or post to YouTube, I was not familiar with the story, Carmi. So YouTube apparently secretly using AI to edit people's videos? How would that work?
Yeah, people were noticing that when they were posting videos to their YouTube Shorts service, that sometimes they looked a little bit funny afterward, that, the skin looked a little bit too smooth, or maybe the shadows were a little bit off. It looked like AI filters had been applied to them. You know how when you see something that's AI, it doesn't look quite real. And so, as it turns out, those complaints were absolutely right. YouTube was conducting experiments by applying AI technologies to people's videos without their knowledge, without their permission, without their consent. So, of course, now YouTube says that they were doing so because they wanted to see how the technology works in the real world and get viewer feedback. The problem here is they weren't asking anyone's permission. There was no transparency here, which is super dirty pool, because a lot of people were worried, folks who watch my videos are going to think that I'm using AI when I'm not. Yeah. And so I don't think anyone is really opposed to using AI in that capacity, but at least tell them about it, give them the opportunity to opt in, don't force it on them without their knowledge.
And now for the Let's Make You Feel Old portion of our feature today. Microsoft Windows 95 released 30 years ago this week. I mean, that's just mind-boggling.
Oh, it is. When I saw this pop up in my feed, I kind of freaked a little bit, because now, of course, it means I'm old. But Windows 95. Think about it. This was the last time that an operating system came out, and it was like a social and cultural phenomenon. The Rolling Stones' "Start Me Up" was playing. Jennifer Aniston and Jay Leno and even the late Matthew Perry were shilling for it. It was the biggest thing in tech up until that point, and quite frankly, we haven't seen operating systems be as cool and popular since then. And a lot of the things that we take for granted today in our technology, if you use Windows, Windows 11, for example, it kind of looks similar, because things like the Start button, the taskbar, plug-and-play hardware, long file names, all of these things were introduced in Windows 95, and it really set the template for what a modern computer does. And so we kind of laugh at it now. It's 30 years old, but it really was an important moment in history, and I would line up all over again at the big box store to buy it if I could.
I'm trying to think the progression, right? So you had Windows 95. Did that replace Windows 3.1, or was there something in between?
Yeah, it replaced Windows 3.1, and what was really revolutionary about Windows 95 is Windows 3.1 wasn't really a full operating system. It was just it sat on top of the old DOS that we had been using up until then.
Okay.
And so you really had to fiddle with it a lot. If you wanted to get on the internet, you had to install different software. If you wanted to install a printer, you had to fiddle with it too. And so Windows 95 kind of took it all. This was built from the ground up, full-on 32-bit operating system, latest and greatest technology. All the stuff was built in. Eventually, it even came with the browser, so you didn't have to download the browser. And so it really was the kind of computer that you didn't need to be an expert to use it. You would just buy it, bring it home, plug it in, and off you went.
By the way, what are we up to now? Is it Windows 11? I don't know.
Yes.
I paid attention anymore.
We're currently at Windows 11.
Are we?
Of course,
Okay.
Most people don't pay attention to it, but we should, because Microsoft later this year in October, they will be pulling support, primary support for Windows 10. So if you have an older version of the operating system, you'll want to pay attention, because if you lose that support, you won't be getting all the latest updates. You won't be as secure as you could be. You might want to upgrade, or at least ask yourself, should I be upgrading before Microsoft turns the taps off on their older operating system?
Hey, Carmi, should I be upgrading?
Your mileage may vary, depends
on
what computer you have, and that's a conversation you and I can probably have.
Okay. God, I'm trying to remember back. You said Microsoft 95. I remember Montreal had a store called Crazy Irving.
I remember
Do
that.
you? A computer store, and they'd expanded. And I remember when they had the box of Microsoft Windows 95, that iconic box. There must have been 1,000 of them in the store. They were everywhere, on every shelf. God,
I miss the days when software came in boxes. Now it just hits your computer online. It's not as much fun. I know it's more efficient, but I don't enjoy it.
The only thing it was missing was liner notes. All right, Carmi Levy. Carmi, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Aaron.
Appreciate it.
Thank
He
you.
joins us, of course, every Thursday afternoon.